Hello everyone, welcome back to Munro Live. I'm Kevin Hardy and I'm here with Sam Shapiro from Grounded EV. So, this is actually kind of a local Detroit-based, startup, and you're going through and retrofitting, EV vans for, modular like RV use. So, thanks for being here.
Of course.
We were going to do kind of like a hoist review type of thing and a podcast, but we've merged them together. We're going to see how this kind of goes, just for time's sake. But yeah, if you want to kind of give us like a brief background about yourself and the company, and then we kind of take a quick walk around and head inside. So.
Sure. I'm Sam Shapiro, the founder and CEO of Grounded, and we make electric modular camper vans and work vans. So we started with a camper van product. We've actually expanded now to work vans too. Mm-hmm. So mobile medicine, mobile dental, mobile offices, those sorts of other use cases. But yeah, my background before this, I was at SpaceX at Starlink, so writing software for the Starlink satellites and Wi-Fi routers. Before that, I was in advertising technology, living in New York, and COVID happened, everything shut down, and was one of those people during COVID who decided to build out a camper van. And I was really not an outdoor, I loved camping, but I was never like an RV person. I'd never been in an RV, but spent about 6 months traveling and living in this camper van that I built, which was a used Chevy Express 2500 low roof cargo van, gas powered. And I was full-time still working from the van with a sort of like cellular antenna and going between national parks, state parks, campgrounds, cities, all over the country. And it was this really amazing experience where I sort of like lived in a radically different way and thought about mobility in a radically different way. But I was already a fan of electric vehicles, and I sort of kept thinking this product could be, even better if it was electric, because I had engine issues. I was doing maintenance, running the engine to run the alternator to power the electronics in the back. So like blowing exhaust in campgrounds, making noise in campgrounds, right? So the idea is like, how do you embrace nature without harming it, which is sort of the idea. And so started Grounded about 2 years ago. Like I said, started with an electric camper van product. And then the modular piece of our product is that we allow customers to an extent, customize the interior. So we're developing sort of a Lego-like modular system. So choose which components you want, where you want them to go, like which size kitchen, or where do you want the shower? Do you want the indoor shower, the outdoor shower? And then the smart part is we have a mobile app. We have embedded electronics inside. People can remotely monitor and control all the electronics of the vehicle, from anywhere in the world.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And this particular one is hand painted.
Yes, yes.
Sandy had walked through. He's like, I really like the paint jobs.
He was like, I don't normally say this. Ivan Montoya is a amazing artist based in Detroit, which is where we're based. He painted this one for us. So yeah.
Are they all hand painted or just this one?
They're not all hand painted. We have a few wraps that we offer to customers with different landscapes like mountains, desert, ocean. So customers can choose usually which of those they want.
All right, cool. Yeah. Well, let's do like a quick walk around if you want to talk about any kind of key features, and then we can head in.
Well, I think like the biggest question people always ask, right off the bat, is what's the range? So the EPA rated range for the vehicle, with the sort of level of payload we have is about 270 miles. But as you know, the speed that you drive is a huge impact there. So we've gotten well over 300 miles of range if you go sort of under 60, 65 miles an hour the whole time, which, when you're camping and going from park to park is not necessarily a huge deal, but you can obviously go faster too. And we get these without the speed limiters on them, so there's no issues going fast. And the platform is called BrightDrop. It's built by GM. It was a subsidiary of GM for the first couple of years when they started it. Now it was sort of brought back into the parent org. It's going under the Chevrolet brand in 2025, so it'll be the Chevrolet BrightDrop. It comes in two lengths. So this is the Zevo 600. It's 24 feet exterior length. We also offer our vans on the Zevo 400, which is 20 feet exterior length.
And we were kind of briefly talking. You're able to pull some power from the traction battery, but not necessarily all. And you do have a house battery set up as well. So
yeah, that's right. So we have a 10 kilowatt hour house battery. That's also modular, so we can basically do increments of 5. But we put that battery, either under the bed or under one of the benches. That powers all the electronics inside, and that house battery system can be charged in 3 ways. It can be charged from 1,000 watts of solar that we put on the roof, from a shore power connection that I'll show you on the outside next to the EV charge port. Right. And then the third way is from the traction battery via the GM inverter that's on board, and that's maxes out at about 300 watts. Right. So that's not going to be like a primary way to charge it, but it can top you off a little bit while you're going from road tripping from one place to another.
I mean, it's interesting, right? Like, imagine when you kind of get into the plan and like your life cycle of how you start going to different places. If you're depleting your house battery, and how long can you run most of the stuff in the actual van off the 10 kilowatts? Because you're close to like a Tesla Powerwall, roughly.
Yeah, you can. I mean, the HVAC is the biggest power draw appliance. So if you sort of put the HVAC aside, easily, I would say like more than a week. I mean, honestly, you could go indefinitely. Yeah. Really, if you're somewhere if it's the summertime and you're somewhere that gets good sun, because we have 1,000 watts, which is kind of a lot for a camper. But if you're running the HVAC, that is something you're going to run for a while and is high power. So that will generally be the biggest impact on how long you can go. No,
but I was just kind of thinking, right? Like, let's say you're at a campsite and you're running it off of this or whatever, or if you decide to, strategically pull from the traction battery, because now when you start driving, if you're full, you can't regen anything, right? So you can mess around a little bit if you're out and about, even of where you're pulling power from and where you decide to once you start moving.
For sure. And you can also slow charge the vehicle battery from the house battery, in a pinch. It's not obviously, even the full house battery discharged to the traction battery 10 kilowatt hours this is a 173 kilowatt hour vehicle battery. So we're only talking about a little bit of range, but it is, that's a feature that, while small, it's not something possible with a combustion engine vehicle where, you could be out in the middle of nowhere, or some situation where, gas, like the doomsday prepper part of me is like, oh, that's cool that in a pinch you could generate, 10, 15 miles of range, from solar panels.
Essentially with everything you brought out, right? If you have a gas or diesel powered vehicle, it's whatever fuel you bring with you. And if you can't refuel out there, then that's kind of what it is, right? So, no, interesting. Well, let's take a quick walk around and kind of go through.
This is just an exterior outlet. So if you have like a speaker or a light, or you want to bring an portable induction stove that we provide out here and plug it in to cook, you can plug that in there. And all our outlets, like I said, are controllable from the app. And you can actually see the real-time power draw too of everything plugged into any of the outlets. And then, like I said, it's a modular system, so it's customizable. So the layout that you're seeing here is just sort of one layout. I mean, it's kind of our standard layout, but we have different configurations. And so even like this bed is a permanently fixed bed in this layout, but we also offer a bed that's more like a booth that turns into a bed at night. And then we also are developing a bed that will rise up to the ceiling during the daytime and have seating underneath. So you don't have to even remake it during the day or at night, which is great. But yeah, in this one, this is garage space. So just storage space, or throw your wet gear or, whatever back here. Also one interesting thing is that this has a roll-up door. So it's not your sort of traditional like transit van or sprinter van.
Sure.
I think obviously this was designed originally by GM as a delivery van, which is why it has a roll-up door, but it's interesting in the camper application because it's sort of a nice feature, because if you're somewhere where like there's rocks around or stuff like that, you don't have to worry about clearance of doors.
Sure. And do you have like anything that obscures this, like a screen or anything?
We offer a mosquito net, bug net, but that's more just for bugs.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so I see here, like from here, I'm assuming a lot of your high voltage and controlling electronics are here in the back with the house battery.
Yeah. So in this configuration, the sort of utilities are underneath the bed. So we've got house battery, inverter, charge controller, DC converter, computer that runs the app and everything like that. Fresh water tank, which is 26 gallons. We can also do that in different sizes. Water pump, filter, all that good stuff.
And so So you have multiple configurations, and does this, we'll say, kind of like home utility area move based off configurations?
It will, yeah. So for example, if you have the bed that's like a booth seating style that turns into a bed, obviously there can be nothing in the aisleway. So in that case, some of that stuff moves to sort of under the benches on each side of the booth. And that's part of like what we've been developing is, essentially we call it like the electrical utility box, which is the battery and the inverter and those big electrical things. And then the water utility box, which is the fresh water tank and the pump and all that stuff. We've sort of packaged that so that during our sort of like, as part of our engineering design process for each customized permutation, it's somewhat trivial to just move that around, right? Because it's got its like input outputs on the sort of self-contained electrical utility box.
So essentially like a pallet, so it's palletized and somewhat, some of it's common, and then essentially wherever you're flexing based off of how your configuration's done, you swap those components. Okay, cool. And then, so like from what we're seeing here, we can get into maybe a little bit more of this a little bit later, but I see a lot of extruded aluminum tracking, and is that essentially the key of the modularity for these build outs?
It's a big part of it, yeah. So we, as explained before, but basically we build this whole structure that you see. So it's almost like we build a manufactured home, if you will, on the warehouse floor. And that structure is all this extruded aluminum. We build that whole structure. It gets insulated all around it. It gets electrical wiring run around it, plumbing pipes run around it with different like T's, right, where you can sort of plug in, because the shower could go in different places, the sink could go in different places, and then the wall panels get put on the interior faces, and then we basically have this whole structure that we've built, and then we more or less stick it in the van and then mount it to the sort of structure here. And so as far as the extruded aluminum goes, all of the like furniture modules mount to the structure, and then users can also buy accessories either from Grounded or just aftermarket stuff and attach them. So hooks and reading lamps and paper towel holder and floating shelves and all kinds of stuff like that.
Okay, cool. It's kind of interesting, and we can get a little bit later. But the fact that essentially, I'm just trying to think of like how the plan is laid out and how you build it. That in some ways the vehicle is not key in that process. That a lot of the stuff is done offline, built, and then brought to the vehicle itself. Is kind of interesting. So
well, and I think like in a lot of ways, Grounded's product is not the vehicle, right?
It's the process.
Because we're not making the vehicle anyway. GM, in this case, GM is, and you could imagine a world where eventually we're platform agnostic and we offer it on different platforms. And maybe those platforms in the future aren't even just vans. Maybe there's other mobility platforms and other vehicle platforms. But us having this sort of modular, customizable, smart, remotely controllable, interior living or working box, like that's the real Grounded product.
Sure.
And then packaging that with some vehicle platform.
Right, and it's more of a modular experience versus essentially, the vehicle that it's being housed in or on, depending on what you're doing, right? So, okay, cool. Did you kind of want to walk around a little more?
So you've got your EV charge port. So this is a 2024 model year. That's a CCS charge port, as you can see. Because of the GM partnership with Tesla, you can charge these at superchargers now. You just need an adapter, which we provide to our customers from CCS to NACS. And then this is the house battery shore power hookup. So we can do 50 amps to shore power battery. This is the water fill-up. So this just goes to the freshwater tank. We also now, in all of the vans that we ship now, have a what's called a city hookup, which is when you basically, with the same pressurized source, will bypass the water tank. So if you're just kind of like parked somewhere, you can leave your shore power hooked in, you can leave your city water hooked in, and then you're just sort of getting unlimited water and power for as long as you're plugged in there.
Yeah, and most state and national parks, right? If you've never been to any of them, when you reserve a site, you can do like dispersed camping in some places, actual camping, and then you can do RV sites, and essentially you can tether, essentially your vehicle to it. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we've got these kind of big windows, and that's pretty much it. Oh, I guess the roof. I can talk about the roof. So like I said, we do 1,000 watts of solar, and then we have a Starlink flat high performance dish that we put on the roof, so you get high-speed internet anywhere you are. And we also do a roof-mounted HVAC system that actually this one doesn't have, but that we're starting to use for other vehicles now.
Okay. And then just like, I'm assuming like the windows themselves, are these something that you guys are sourcing directly for you, or is this kind of a commodity item?
It's kind of a commodity item. There's a few suppliers sort of within the RV industry that make these. These are polycarbonate. And we've done some other window SKUs as well, but we do like these. I'll show you how they open from the inside, but they pop open, which is nice, and we have bug screen blinds too. So yeah, it's a nice experience.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, if there's anything else on the outside, if not, we can kind of
No, I
head
think
in.
that's it for the outside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I see here, like we have some plumbing. Is this part of the? I guess like what are we seeing here with essentially the shark bite fittings?
Yeah. So that's part of our plumbing system. So we have that's basically the gray water output. What you're seeing there.
Okay.
So gray water for people who aren't familiar with RVs, you have your freshwater tank, and then gray water tank is where the sink and the shower drain to.
Right.
And then if the RV has I guess I should say, some RVs that have toilets have a black water system,
yes.
which is where that would drain to. We don't do a black water system. We do offer toilets, but we offer self-contained toilets that basically get emptied out, not through a black water tank. So we offer either the dry flush toilet, which has these sort of like vacuum sealable bags that you just throw out in the trash. We offer composting toilets, which obviously sort of stays there and composts. And then we offer cartridge toilets where you sort of remove this cartridge and go to the dump station in the RV campground,
right,
and like dump it in their dump station. But Grounded's not doing black water systems. They just get messy, and
sure,
yeah, it's especially for people who are not like experienced with RVs.
With dealing with them, yeah. Now, from the other aspects, is essentially not having a plumbed in toilet. Is that a very deliberate decision? And maybe what does that enable?
The not having a plumbed in toilet in a black water system, it's truly just about the user experience of not having the user deal with black water.
Sure.
Yeah. But like I said, we have a plumbing system that goes all the way around the vehicle for the sink and the shower and the freshwater, gray water tank. So.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, I guess we can head in, and
if
there's anything along the way, if you want to lead away, if you.
Well, it might be easier to go.
Yeah, the other side probably. Yeah.
I guess one thing I'll call out when we walk in is this passenger seat is actually a seat that Grounded installs. The seat that comes stock from the factory from GM is what's called a jump seat. So because again, it's designed as a delivery van, not really intended for passengers. The jump seat is just sort of this seat that like folds down from the wall there, the partition wall, and it's really uncomfortable, like would not be fun for long drives. So we weld this whole structure and attach it to the hard mounting points of the vehicle and put this aftermarket seat in, just for more comfortable passenger experiences. But yeah, we can come in because we can show you sort of the driver's cab. We don't really do anything besides the seat to the driver's cab. The bright drop, as you can see up here, is a little bit more Spartan and industrial than what you'd find in maybe a Mercedes Sprinter van or a Ford Transit van. Again, that just has to do with its design as a delivery van. But the nice thing is that these surfaces are really easily cleanable, and a lot of our customers are obviously taking these to the outdoors. So it's not really necessarily a bad thing. There's also tons of storage space up here, which is cool. You can see sort of like my bags here, but you can see how big this compartment is. So, just tons of space for your stuff and your gear up here while you're driving. And then it's got these two screens that are pretty big, which I can show you. And it's got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. It's got built-in Google Maps. It's got, Bluetooth with your phone. So, modern safety features, 360 camera, bird's eye view, blind spot assist, lane centering, all that good stuff.
And are there any of those capabilities that you're able to piggyback off of? for?
So what we are deploying now is a software integration with GM, where we basically are going to start pulling that data.
Okay.
So vehicle DTC codes, vehicle range, vehicle state of charge, those things from the vehicle, and then showing them in the grounded app. So from the grounded app, you sort of get monitoring and control, not just of the appliances of the RV interior, but also of the base platform van.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So how many configurations do you currently offer?
Well, I don't have a number off the top of my head because it's really more about how many modules we offer.
Okay.
And it's a grid system, and so you can sort of choose. Like, I don't know the math off the top of my head of the number of permutations, but there's probably, I don't know, 15 to 20 modules, right? So there's like the shower and the microwave module and these overhead storage modules. This is a closet. We've got this bench seating with storage underneath. The flip out table, the different beds that I mentioned. We have the kitchen in different sizes, we have taller fridge options, induction stove. There's a lot of options.
So, and just like how do you envision, so you have the current state of grounded now, and then do you see with like how your modular system is built up, like, more optimization and then more changes based off this and really codifying like what these modules mean and how efficient you can get them?
Yeah. There's a lot we're doing right now, working toward that.
Yeah.
This product we call the G2. We sort of actually yesterday, funny enough, just started putting pen to paper on conceptualizing what a G3 might look like in the future. And that's going to sort of have some of the, we're really just going to make a vast number of improvements based on what we've learned from, shipping in the double digits of this product and, challenges around, like, not challenges, but limitations of the current modular system, how we can improve that. Sure. This is wood. A lot of this, the panels are wood and some of the furniture is wood. The nice thing about wood is, for the customer, is that it looks and feels nice, and it has this very like cabiny interior in here, very like warm, sort of like Scandinavian feeling interior, which we like a lot. But we are starting to look at some different materials that might be like lighter weight and more easily cleanable and things like that.
Sure. All right, so we took a quick break. Now we're both sitting here, but one of the things I guess for us that we noticed, and then like the ripples from COVID, is labor, and like more specifically your kind of skilled labor that you've been holistically using for some time, and then the shortages. So the manufacturing was paused for a week or two or whatever it was, and that's kind of separate from even just the actual COVID closures, right? And then now the ripples start happening within the supply chain, and then, hey, we don't have enough parts to build this. Okay, fine. Now we close the line down, and then these people are furloughed, laid off, or whatever it is, and then they come back, and then sometimes just many of our customers started to lose like their skilled workforces they used, and then started having to bring more people or new people or continually new people in, and then that often led to essentially a lot of quality issues, And then I think you kind of see and then the ripples of those quality issues from like chip shortages or other part shortages are just constantly in the news. So-and-so recalls 180,000 units of this. So-and-so does this. And you very often don't hear about Toyota and recalls and some of that stuff, but they're recalling a lot of things, right? Right. How do you see, like, maybe like with the modularity, or just how you may attempt to kind of optimize and go forward with your kind of approach to upfitting vans, maybe the ability to waiver some of that with scaling up, I guess, with volume, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I don't know that we're more immune, in some ways than any other manufacturer. Yeah, I don't know if I have a great answer to that one.
No, that's fine. I guess maybe I can help answer it, or we can just, when I think of like a module, so now we've kind of talked about maybe this, but maybe with like the third of the cabinetry folks, I don't know how long it takes you to build this. If you want to comment on that, that's fine. But like, where the ebbs and flows or some of your longest process time is, you're like, hey, we spent a lot of time just screwing these wood panels into this grid system we have. It'd be great if, we could change some things, and then I can slim that time frame down, and we can balance our line a little bit more.
I mean, we're trying to move toward more industrialization for sure in general. And again, on that sort of spectrum from traditional woodworking, kind of at one end of the spectrum, and large, high volume automotive manufacturing on the other end of that spectrum. I think for sure the RV industry in general is, probably on the half of the spectrum closer to woodworking and traditional house building, and then us in particular as a startup building the first, 20 vehicles in our first year of the product, probably even more so, right? Where we're sort of, hand building these things in a lot of ways. But, the big but is like, we're doing it with a team from the automotive industry, from aerospace manufacturing. And so there's an intentionality for us, there's an intentionality behind the approach.
Sure.
Where, we know we're at low volumes, and we're sort of taking a certain approach at the beginning that's very intentional of low volume, more looks like built by hand, want to be able to iterate as fast as possible, want to be able to get things into customers' hands as fast as possible, wanted to do it without, having to go fundraise huge amounts of cash to invest in tooling on day one, and, having this sort of premeditated strategy of this is going to shift over time, and the product's going to, we're going to get the first 25, 50 out there. We're going to get customer feedback, between almost every one of those, for the first 5, literally between every one, huge marginal improvements, right? Then you start doing very small batches, right? Start batching like 3 vehicles at a time, 5 vehicles at a time, but it's still, it's like, okay, that helps maybe do some supply chain batching, and maybe like some, little like hint of industrialization. Sure. Of, okay, at least we can build the frames, build 3 frames, 5 frames at the same time, but but it's still like a couple technicians like sort of building them by hand, right? But then it's like, okay, now we're getting up there a little more, the sales pipeline's becoming more repeatable, and now we're making some larger wholesale design changes that come with manufacturing approach changes, all sort of with the aim of, well, really both improved product, improved modularity, and improved industrialization, right? To be able to, because we're constantly asking ourselves, we're very aware as a team from automotive and from aerospace, like we're very aware of the deficiencies, in the manufacturing process today, or the slowness of the current approach. And so I think with any hardware business in particular, it's like there's no shortage of ideas, there's no shortage of identifying areas of improvement, of new product features you want to add, of some conceptualized way of like building the thing faster, or an industrialized version of the process that you're following, or right, with like tooling that you could use. But then it's always like the reality of cost and investment that it takes, and the business decision that you have to make of, okay, are we going to like pause the current production process for 3 months while we go through this redesign phase and developing out what that industrialization looking process looks like for the next iteration, and then we pick back up and now we're moving faster? Are we going to try to keep the current product and process going, and then be sort of pulling some of the engineers part-time to be working on designing what that next process looks like, so that there comes a moment where we flip a switch and sort of turn on the next generation of the product and that manufacturing process that comes with that, which, by the way, that's what I personally saw at SpaceX, right? Where they would like spin up a whole new factory like while this factory's going, and then basically flip a switch. But again, it's like, it's not, there's no like lack of imagination in terms of how things can be better or faster, but it's, the challenge is running the business, right? Making those really hard decisions of like, when's the right time to actually invest in change and in upfront capital costs and in tooling and, you know, making a jig to, right? So I would say that's all stuff that like we're thinking about, and I don't have like a silver bullet. I don't think there is a silver bullet. I don't think there's one right answer, you know, but there's like frameworks for thinking about it, and we kind of do the best we can.
No, and you know, if this is literally building cabinets for a house, and this is building an F-150 at the highest volume vehicle you can, right? I honestly think your end state of, if you had 4 phases that you wanted to improve things, it's still probably here, right? You know, it's somewhere not in this scale, because it never makes, I don't want to say never makes any sense, but it probably never will make the sense to make the compromises and the investment that, you know, an auto manufacturer will do because of the complexity associated with it. But I think it's, you know, and this is kind of why it's exciting, right? You could look at, hey, we have 4 phases and this is where we want to get to. And maybe phase 1 is all just like, you know, rapid prototype fixtures just to do it fast. And it's, hey, it's only fixes that take 20 minutes. And you target things and kind of go through it like that, and kind of go through. And then how you set up time, essentially get those gaps for both either your engineers or even people to help work these fixes, you know, you would based off of just how fast you could even build vehicles. It's just interesting to see like how you could do it, and then how, if you plan in, you know, some of that stuff, you can enable your own success potentially in the future. So it's
totally,
it's exciting.
Totally. I mean, another interesting thing too is that, like, by no means would I say I come from aerospace. I was at SpaceX for a time. We just hired a VP of engineering and manufacturing who's from Amazon's Kuiper program. He was at SpaceX earlier too. But there's something funny here about aerospace and the RV industry being a little bit similar in volume, right? Like both are sort of nowhere close to automotive manufacturing, right? In terms of these volume, because even the Starlink program, when you think about like by orders of magnitude more satellites than any other satellite maker ever in history, we're still talking about thousands of satellites, right? Yeah. So, and then on the rocket side, obviously much fewer than that. So there's something a little bit funny because it's like on one axis of sort of engineering complexity, you would have like automotive in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. You feel like aerospace way up here and RVs, you know, maybe below automotive, right? But on the volume axis, aerospace and RVs kind of come together a little bit. Yeah. And so there are, we've talked a lot about automotive today, but there are aspects of what my team has seen in the aerospace manufacturing world that we're borrowing to bring to our process.
Yeah, and I would agree. Like when you look at it, and you know, former colleague here who passed away a few years ago, he always used to say that essentially, you know, automotive engineering is amazing engineering with shit materials, and the aerospace engineer was terrible engineering with the best materials. It didn't matter. Like, hey, we want this. We're like, fine, machine the whole thing in a titanium for the door. Okay. And that's on a commercial jet because it can't fall out of the sky, right? Like the cheapest material that the aerospace industry, industry uses is aluminum, right? Mm-hmm. One of the most expensive, I mean, carbon's in there on some auto manufacturers, but you know, it made waves when the F-150 went to essentially an almost entirely aluminum body structure, right? You're like, just because of the cost, right? And it's not that much more. It's not the cost of carbon. It's not the cost of some of these other composites, but it's like on average, depending on how you do it, you know, 2-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio from steel. So, and I know that's why I was kind of curious about how stuff comes to the line, because when you look at like how we scaled up, like in World War II, I would argue some stuff, your automotive things or things that are based off of like ground vehicles were built in a very automotive way, tanks coming down lines and things like that. And then you go look at how airplanes are built, and there's lines, but it's stations and things coming to them,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
Versus the plane always moving through to some of these stations.
Sure.
And I would, I would agree entirely that they're actually probably very, very similar as far as how you iterate and build them. You know? So.
Yeah, and then maybe one other thing too I'll throw out is just sort of on general manufacturing approach and technicians. We're talking about labor. Like, I think technicians are such a valuable resource for the engineers too, right? Like these are the people actually building the things. And one of my favorite expressions ever is any idiot can build a bridge, but it takes an engineer to build a bridge that just fails. and I think I've heard of many anecdotes, and then we've seen it at Grounded too, where our technicians are like, hey engineer, that was stupid, we should do it this way, right? And have great ideas. So I think again, you can't necessarily have that much of a flexible, porous, design in real time type of approach with high volume automotive manufacturing. But with what we're doing, trying to build into the process, just all forms of quick iterative feedback and improvements. And yeah, like I said, a lot of those can come from the technicians too.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I mean, there's major gates with an automobile that once you're past it, if you want to stop it, in development, I mean, it's like an act of God, right? Because if you're delaying...
What was the phrase you used a minute ago about bureaucracy?
Bureaucratic inertia? Yeah, once things start, that's inertia, it. There's just no stopping it, right? Yeah. So, and that's to keep everything moving, right? Hey, if I just had more time, if everybody had more time, it would be better. Right. But it's got to stop now, right? As far as we have to get all this into durability testing and then see if it works, because it may fall apart. And we might get some more time to iterate on it because it failed. And then we got to fix it to keep it moving. But
there's so much complexity just in the sheer volume of the BOM, right? With us too. It's I always say we're not building rockets, right? It's not like the science and engineering is complex from that perspective, but just the number of components that are involved, even in this, is huge. And so when you're talking about high volume automotive manufacturing, right, it's one single change and change of supplier and change of the BOM, even if it's small, it's
well, even if you decide to do something one of our customers decided they wanted something to paint and match, and then it just added 32 more permutations of stuff that just explodes. And then when you're building a car, all of a sudden now I have 32 combinations of something waiting line side, and you're like, why did we do this? Who allowed? I mean, and I understand where it came from. Someone's like, this will look great, and everyone agrees this will look great. And then even someone's like, we have no space for this. And you're like, well, we're gonna have to make space. Or the decision somehow it goes down enough to the pipeline that, eventually when the plant hears about it, maybe they can't say anything about it, or they don't have enough sway. Because there's definitely some customers that have some plants that the plant has all the say, right? If you propose anything that shuts the plant down, they're like, oh, you wanted to turn off the money printing machine?
Right.
We're not turning off the money printing machine. Right. It's paying for the whole shebang-a-bang. Everything, your conversation, all your meetings about good ideas is paid for by this plant just, printing money, essentially.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But I think it's...
Well, by the way, the money printing machine, until they overproduce vehicles.
Oh, and then you got to scale it back. Yeah, fortunately, hopefully you're good about, volume forecasting and stuff like that. But no, I think I always think spaces like this are kind of interesting because it's a lot of flexibility to go up or down. And, and I would never recommend, going the full automotive tilt of things. I honestly think somewhere the most optimized you may ever be is somewhere here, right? Just based off of volume and stuff like that. And it
certainly won't be here.
It certainly
won't be here. Yeah.
I don't know. Who knows? Maybe if everyone's living in just houses or cars now, it might be here, right?
Yeah. But I was gonna say earlier too, the person that just joined our team and was talking about the volume that that they were scaling up to is working toward one a day, right? And it's funny from the perspective of from automotive that is meaningless, right? That's such a
Yeah.
such a small, tiny.
Yeah, cars that are built 1 or 2 a day are $400,000.
Right.
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 You know, I mean, not always, but you know, they're building, you know, 1 car a minute, right?
Yeah.
You know, depending, right? You know, sometimes faster than that, right? Every 36 seconds, there's a truck in some places just rolling off the line, and you're like, wow. You know, it's when you think about how many parts, like your bill of materials, like you're talking about, all those parts went into this, and every 36 seconds, one of them drives off. And that's you know, maybe full rate, 90% efficiency, 95 going. Sometimes they, you know, close a shift or whatever it is, but yeah, it's wild. So, well, Sam, I'm glad you guys, you know, had a chance to come by and we had a chance to take a look at it. It's it's definitely a different approach. It's interesting, and I'm sure I've said it's interesting many times in this conversation. People always geek me for it, but I think there's interesting ways forward. I think that you guys can get things done faster, or even whether you want to add more complexity to really tailor to things, or streamline.
Yeah.
It could be very exciting for you guys. So
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
cool.
Yeah.
So thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
So,
it's a great conversation. Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate it.